If you're going to do something, do it the right way the first time. If it's worth doing, don't do it half-assed.
This is Dave Meltzer, CEO of Sports One Marketing, here with Entrepreneur the Playbook, and I have Kevin Mawae, center finalist for the Hall of Fame. I wore this for you. When you don't see it, you won't achieve it, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No,
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, everyone, I like the humility. Is this year really brought some new light to the Hall of Fame with a certain individual.
Yeah, well, it was a colorful class.
Yeah, colorful class. That's a great way to put it. Well, anyway, now you're with ASU,
Yep.
and right now you're a consultant, patiently waiting to work with the kids.
Yeah.
And well, let's take you back to your playbook to success, because your life wasn't always easy, and the journey wasn't always simple and straightforward as most people think NFL careers are. You went to LSU. Give me a little bit of insight on how you felt when you went to college. If you had great confidence you're going to be an NFL player, or more just there for education.
My story, I'm one of the kids that said I always wanted to be an NFL player. And when I played football at 8 years old, the first time I ever stepped out on the field, I came home. I told my mom I'm going to play in the NFL one day. And that was my lifelong goal. I didn't know that you had to go to college. This is why, I started playing in Europe, in Germany. My dad was in the military. Moved to my hometown, Leesville, Louisiana, and started playing for my junior high and high school. And it was there when I started realizing the next step is college ball. Came from a pretty successful high school football program that sent guys to the NFL, well, not really NFL, but to college football. And 4 years after into high school, I had teammates that went to LSU, became an LSU fan during that time, and committed there. And that's how I ended up at LSU. It was just the next step in what my goal was. Again, I didn't know you had to go to college to get to the NFL, but it was the next progression for me, and it was a big decision in my life.
It would have been a perfect match, because when I was 5, I dreamed of being in the NFL, and I slept with my Nerf football. I named it Frankie, but I knew I had to go to college, so my mom figured I wasn't going to be an NFL player, so I better study. So when I got to college and play, and Christian Okoye ran me over my first play, I realized that's where my dream ended.
we all have wake up calls, and fortunately some of them happen earlier for other people. But
it was a blessing for me. Trust me, it was a blessing.
Well, things worked out for me, and I got drafted to the NFL and had a great career.
And now, in that journey, you went through a transformation. Early in your NFL career, you were most like other NFL players. Your values probably aren't the same as they are today.
They're a lot different. I came into the league, and all I knew about the NFL was I was going to make lots of money, had the ability to buy any car I wanted, buy a house, just that whole lifestyle, the stereotypical NFL lifestyle that people think the NFL is like. And that's what my goal was. That's what my dream was. And I was living it. I mean, I was married. My wife and I married in college, got to the NFL, and lived in a house that was too big for us. You probably spent more money than a couple of just two people needed to be spending. And probably wasn't, I wasn't a bad guy, but I just wasn't living right.
Yep.
And, things happened. Going into my third year of the league, my brother got killed in a car accident, and it changed my perspective on my whole life. Wife became pregnant 2 months after my brother was killed in his accident. And all of a sudden, things became a little bit more important than just the money and the riches and the fame. It became about the purpose and who I was as a man, and those are the things. That's the catalyst that changed my perspective on my career and my life, was the death of my brother and the birth of my son.
And in the accidental death of your brother, one thing, I have 4 brothers. My oldest passed away as well. But my younger brothers, your brother was your best friend.
Yeah, he was. So there was a 1 year gap between John and myself, like 1 year and 5 days. And everybody thought we were twins growing up. And then there's a 4 year gap between me and the next 2 brothers. And so living in the military housing, you don't have big houses. We shared the same room our entire life. Yep. At one point, for a long stretch, we wore the same size clothes. So it wasn't like his clothes and his clothes, they were their clothes.
Yeah.
Shared the same underwear drawer and the same sock drawer. I mean, that's kind of creepy now thinking about it.
No, I read that. I'm like, I like that. Like, that's close type brothers.
It is, but it wasn't like John's friends and Kevin's friends. Is like we all ran together. And so the first time we were ever separated from each other was the year he went to college ahead of me. Went to Northwestern University in Louisiana. and I was in high school, and that was the first and only time we'd ever been separated, like for a stretch. And then I went to LSU, and then following him sitting out a year, he transferred, and we became roommates again. And so, yeah, he was my best friend. I mean, there wasn't anything that I did or he did that one of us weren't with each other. If one of us got in a fight, we were both in a fight. It's just, that's how it was. And then, you know, of course, you know, he went on and became a coach, high school football coach, and I went on to the NFL. And once I became a professional, that was only the second time in our lives that we've been separated like that. And so yeah, he grew up as my best friend.
Did you guys fight?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was. He fought me. I never fought back. He was. He was a little bit stronger than I was, a little bit bigger than me. And then I was always John's little brother growing up. And then when I got to college and I started making a name for myself, it kind of switched roles. And you know, of course, getting in the weight room and stuff, I had a little bit more. You know, I was willing to fight back a little bit more. We got a couple of fights in the locker room, and where teammates had to break us up, but I didn't back down. But yeah, but he was my best friend up until that time.
Now, everyone goes, I think, through a transformation of some sorts, and sometimes we're blessed that it happens at a younger age.
Yeah.
You know, but for kind of shifting your values, where you and I married my childhood sweetheart. I was a multimillionaire in my 30s. It took me losing everything, almost losing my wife, you know, to go through a transformation and say, you know, I wasn't a bad guy like you.
Yeah.
My values were wrong. I wasn't happy, so I'd buy things and different things. You know, when you went through your transformation, where did you prioritize things that made, I think it made you last in the league for 16 years, right?
I think for me, it was not just a transformation the way I thought. For me, it was a spiritual awakening. So when my brother passed away, and then my wife became pregnant, I had no spiritual upbringing at all, so I had no answers. And I really, to be honest with you, I just one day after my brother's death, I opened up a Bible and just started reading it. Just out of the blue, I played in the Blue-Gray All-Star game that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. And they gave us a Bible as a gift. And it just sat there for 3 years or 2 years or whatever it was. And nobody could give you answers for life and death and the whys, but I was like, well, you know, I'll just read this Bible. And I did, and I started reading it. And so the more I read the Bible, the more questions I had. And the more I had, the more I began to read. So I didn't force myself, it drew me in. And so I started understanding, you know, and everybody walks a different path. Mine became a spiritual path where I became a believer. I got saved as a Christian and understood that Christ died on the cross for my sins, and through that process understood that football was a platform. It's not who I was. I had my identity wrapped up in Kevin Mawae, the football player, the millionaire, that kind of thing. And then when I began to realize who God made me to be as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a leader, my priorities changed in that it was no longer about me. It was more about what can I do with the platform I've been given through football. And so that's where my prioritization changed from Kevin, family, riches, money, to who do I please? The one who gave me my ability. My sole purpose was to please the God that I served. And in doing so, my family became more important to me because he gave me the family. And then football became a secondary or third or even fourth on the list as far as my priorities become, because I knew if I did everything for the glory of God, then everything else fell into place. And that's exactly what happened for me. The money became no longer important to me, but I became the highest paid center in the NFL.
Right.
The pleasing the coaches wasn't important to me, because if I failed in what I was doing, I felt like I was letting God down, but I had a higher expectation for myself than the coaches did. And so everything just kind of fell into place.
Right. And yet coaches put you up on a pedestal.
Yeah. And
you know, I've talked to coaches, you know, Herm even, right? I'll say the best player, teammate, all of those things.
And that's the thing, and so many guys, and I saw it in my time before I became a Christian and after, the guys continue to build this pedestal up upon themselves, and not just even in football, but in other realms of this world, as a business leader, as pastors of mega churches, and it becomes, they're sitting on this pedestal where everybody can see me. And the reality of it is, and I learned this years after my brother passed away, and within the last 5 or 10 years, that all the successes that we have are bricks that we can stack it one of two different ways. You stack them to create a pedestal so you can stand above everybody else, or you can spread them out to create a platform to where now I can reach many different people. And that's where I see it myself now, is the football has created a platform for me to reach out to those in the LSU community. I'm on the Polynesian Hall of Fame. I reach out to the
Kevin
Polynesian
Kaplan.
community, yeah. And so I'm in all these different areas where now I can reach out to different people because of the experiences that I had and the successes I've had. And so I chose to take my bricks and the accolades and spread them out instead of stacking them up. And there's a great story in the Bible about King Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon, who built the statue unto himself. And what he did, he spent the time and resources and money to build a statue so everybody would view him and praise him. But what he did was he made the cheapest part of the statue was made out of clay. It was his feet. And then the head was made out of gold. So, the gist of the story is you need to spend more time building the platform and then build your way up. Instead, he spent minuscule amount building the platform and built it all on top. Comes top heavy and it falls down. And it's just like anything else. I don't know what happened in your business world, but if you probably built yourself up
exactly.
and your foundation was frail and it toppled over. Pastors that lead mega churches, they forget where they came from, who they were, and they start recognizing who they are now, where people put them, and something happens in their life and they lose everything. And I've been a part of, I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen in other people's lives, that God has given us a platform to use. And for me, it was football. And I chose to use it in a way that expresses my faith and my belief in Him, and hopefully to bring other people. So now something's different about you. It's like you're just a normal dude.
Right.
Living
of service.
You've had all the success. You could be whoever you want to be. I said, well, I'm just a normal guy who had a really cool job for a living, but I chose it to make a difference in other people's lives, and that I could sit down here with you and not feel like I'm even greater than you or lesser than you, but just one of you. And I think for me, the greatest compliment I got in the last couple of years was actually this year. I was sitting on the field with one of the players who's about to graduate from here, and I just asked him, what's next in your life? He goes, I don't know. And he goes, just trying to figure it out. So don't worry about it, man. I think God's got a plan for you, so everything's gonna work out. And he said, Coach, I knew there was something different about you. and he's talking about my faith, and that's a great compliment.
Yep.
Because I could be, pull the shirt off my chest and look what I've done, and be puffed up and feathers everywhere. But the reality of it is, I'm no better than these kids. I'm no better than you. I just happen to have a really cool job that put me in the limelight. But I don't carry myself like that. At least I don't think I do. Yeah. And I think the people around me would say the same thing, that he took what God gave him, made the most out of it, and is using it to reach out to others.
And that humility carries over to, even in my own life, as I was saved the same way, and create, it's a human experience. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Yeah. But one of the things that was difficult for me was forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it was a big part of my own redemption was, how could I forgive myself,
Yep.
right? Because my dream for me was I wanted to buy my mom a house and a car, right? 6 kids, single mom. I actually lost everything, including my mom's house, like an idiot, right? And so the first step, as I surrendered, right, and was saved, was, okay, I have to forgive myself.
Yep.
Did you go through any type of?
I did. There's so much and there's things I did that I was like, and I struggled with it early in my faith walk. Like, how can God forgive me for the things I've done when I can't even forgive myself? But I've learned in my maturing process is that God forgives you regardless. And so really, it's a sin against God for you not to just live your life out after He's already forgiven you. And so it took a little while to get that right in my head and really right in my heart. But at the end of the day, I found a way to understand that. So you know what? God gave His Son to die on the cross for the sins that I committed, and they're forgiven. Once I've accepted Jesus as my Savior, they're gone. It's like I've been erased clean. Now it's the mental part of me that's got to live through that and understand that. But my heart part understood that what was and what is new. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. But I think everybody goes through that process, and there are just things that we just make bad mistakes, and that's a human nature in us, and we're born sinful beings, and that's why Christ died for us, and that's the life that I live and choose to live, and for anybody that wants to bring my past up, and it's like, well, I remember when you did this, and I remember. How can you be that guy? And I'm like, well, because I'm no longer that guy. The guy that you knew back in high school, the guy you knew early in college, that guy doesn't exist anymore. Now, yeah, did I live those things? Absolutely. Do I live in them? Absolutely not. I've moved on, and if you choose to remember me for those things that I did that wronged you or somebody else, then that's on you. It's not on me.
Right.
And and so I just leave it at that.
And taking that to now, you're a great influence here, great program, new stadium, new athletic facilities, great coach.
Yep.
You're part of a great organization. How are you going to, in the public sector, we can't always bring religion into it,
Yeah.
but we can bring faith.
Yep.
Right? I tell kids all the time, put faith where you want it, because a lot of people don't realize faith works both ways.
Yeah.
Don't put faith in what you don't want. How are you communicating? Because kids are different today. How
Yeah.
are you communicating that inspiration that changed you, so that they don't have to pay the dummy tax that you
Well,
pay?
here's for me, I can't separate my faith out of anything. I just don't believe you can.
Good.
And whether I work here at a public university, which I know there's these
Right.
laws and everything like that, I am who I am. And I do things based on what I feel God has called me to do, whether you say I can't do it or not. Now, I'll be respectful. God has called us under authority of men, and so whatever those rules are, I operate within them. But at the end of the day, I'm not separating Kevin Mawae from the football player and the Kevin Mawae the Christian, or Kevin Mawae the coach and Kevin Mawae. I'm one and the same.
Yeah.
I can't be a coach without being a Christian coach. I can't be a football player without being a Christian football player.
I love that.
So if you want to know who I am and what makes me tick as a coach or as a player, I'm going to tell you, one, I do it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do with all of your heart as if you're doing for the Lord, not for man. I don't do it for Coach Herm. I don't do it for Ray Anderson. I don't do it for
The NCAA.
For NCAA.
Right.
I do it because this is what God has called me to do. But I do it respectfully in a way that honors the kids' beliefs and whatever they believe. But I tell them, this is who I am. Whether you don't believe this or not, I get that. But here's the lesson in it, and whatever that might be. But I tell you, when a kid says there's something different about you, or when a kid comes up and they say, I just feel like I can be honest with you, because I believe my purpose here at this university as an analyst right now is to be around kids where they can see somebody who's reached the highest level of which most of them wish to attain, but most of them never will, and be very honest with them about it, but do it in a way that's loving and respectful, and be like, man, it's a great dream to have, but I think that you don't have the abilities that's going to take you to the next level. But let's make you the best player we can make you here to help ASU win. And in the meantime, ASU is going to help you achieve the highest level of education you can get with your graduating on time and probably graduating with a master's degree before you walk out of here. And in that process, I can teach you how to do things right, how to be a better man, a better husband, a better child, and in some cases a better father. And so that's what my role is, more of a mentor thing than it is a coach, because I believe, and I know Herm believes this, we're here to grow men, young men, into mature men. And out of the 100 guys we have on this team, there might be 2 guys on this roster right now that will go play an extended time in the NFL.
Sure.
And so those other 98 guys, they got to be ready to step out in the real world and become business leaders and dads and fathers and
Community leaders.
Yeah, exactly right. And they got to be able to do it in a way that is respectful, honoring, and do it with integrity. And so that's more important than just trying to win football games at ASU.
I think that's so important, and why I wanted to sit down with you is in my life I've had this extraordinary experience and been blessed. But of all I played college football, like I said. I've been around the Hall of Famers, the pros, ran Lee Steinberg, so many professional athletes in all sports. But the most interesting thing is when I ask someone, who had the biggest impact on their life, that a lot of times it's their football coach.
Yeah, and
it's a big responsibility.
It really is. And a lot of times it is because, especially in this sport, and the higher level you go, you find that, especially in the NFL, 85% of the players in the NFL are of a minority race, or African American predominantly, and 50% of those come from single parent households. And so when you're in that demographic group and you play sports, really lots of times the only male figure in your life is a coach. And I saw the statistic when I was coaching. I coached 5th and 6th graders for 2 years, and 80% of a young athlete's life is spent with his college coach, with his coaches. Like, I will spend more time with these kids than their parents will in one semester. Sometimes I think coaches forget that. So the kids are watching them as father figures, as male figures, as role models. How do I treat my wife? When my wife is around here, my daughter's on campus here. How do I treat my daughter in front of these young men? Because that's what we're modeling for them. And when you don't do that, then you miss out on a great opportunity to show young men how to be real men. And for me, I had some great coaches in my life, but really my greatest role model was my dad. My mom and dad, they just hit 50 years this year.
Nice.
Was their marriage perfect? Absolutely not. I've seen some.
There's no such thing.
No, and people that say that we have this great marriage and they made this Instagram marriage, they're liars. They're all liars.
For sure.
Because everybody has issues and everybody has problems. Everybody's got skeletons in the closet. It's just how do you choose to handle them within your family. But my mom and dad are still married, and they brought up 4 boys. They lost one of them. They've got great grandchildren now, but my dad, and my mom, it worked. They had to work to make their marriage work, and that's what I saw out of it. But my dad, him being in the military, I see my dad up at nighttime spit polishing his boots, and like heavy starch on his BDUs and his uniforms. And my dad never stepped out of the house without his uniform looking sharp. And for me, that was big. And I've told my dad this before. It's about the little things. It's all about the little things. My dad used to always tell us, if you're going to cut the grass, you're going to cut it my way. There's not 2 different ways of doing it. It's the wrong way, and it's the way you're supposed to do it. And if we had to make the bed, if the corners had to be tucked and the sheet beds were tight, and the bed sheets were tight, and that was my role model. My mom was the same way. I tell kids the other day, if our socks weren't all folded and put in the drawer, and we don't just throw our stuff in the drawers, my mom would take all the drawers out and just dump them on the floor. Wow. And you had to fold them all over and start all over again.
You'd be a good roommate.
So my brother and I, our room was never dirty.
Right.
It just wasn't. But my dad's whole point was it takes more work to come back and do it a second time than if you just did it right the first time. And I've lived by that. If I'm going to come out here and turn something into my coaching staff, a project that I have to do, I'll stay here till midnight and make sure it's done right, so that I don't have to correct it tomorrow morning. Because when you got to do the correction, now you got to take it apart. You got to go do the research all over again and put it back together. The worst thing as a homeowner is buying a used house that's been remodeled by somebody else because they cut corners. And now all of a sudden I got to take a wall out, I got to redo the pipes, and I got to scrape all the wallpaper off because they chose to do it the cheap way instead of doing it the right way. And so it goes back, that's the principles my dad taught me, and he's the greatest role model I had as a young man, was if you're going to do something right, or if you're going to do something, do it the right way the first time. If it's worth doing, don't do it half-assed. And that's what my dad would always say. And that's kind of who I am. And I know it's a great deal of what I try to model to guys that I'm around.
When you're doing an incredible job, and this is one of those episodes for me, I wish I had another 20 minutes.
I appreciate it. I didn't know what this was all about.
No, this is amazing.
But I think it's a great opportunity because, and you worked with Hall of Famers. I played for a Hall of Fame
and
coach.
Future ones.
And I played for Mike Munchak, and I played for some of the greatest offensive line coaches in the league. And it was always the same thing. Everybody's got unique talents and gifts, whether it be in the business or in the football world. And part of me being who I was coaches that recognized that in me, but allowed me to kind of hone my skills within their system. And so did I do everything perfectly? Absolutely not. But I give every effort all the time? Absolutely. But I allowed coaches to teach me. I was coachable and teachable, but they allowed me to grow without feeling like they were being threatened or I wasn't listening to what they were doing. But it all goes back to recognizing that we all have talents and gifts. And for me, they were given to me by God. I honed them on myself and with the coaches and staffs that I've been on. And to be around guys like Mike Munchak and play with Warren Moon. I played with Walter Jones and Curtis Martin, and guys that did things right. They're not just on the field, but off the field. And that's what made those guys special, and hopefully that's what makes me special, is that I felt like I did things the right way, both on and off the field.
And Kevin walks the walk, which is, I think, important in business and in life and in your personal, pursuits. So It's very rare I'm with someone that it's just stern on who you are and how you're going to live your life, and I really appreciate that. I think more people out there that are looking to do your business, don't sacrifice your character and integrity just because other people are expecting something else. And I can't wait to see and listen to your induction speech. I'm sure you're going to thank your father and your mother. I could tell already, and God, of course.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneur, The Playbook.